The Chalke History Festival special series on history with Jackson. So hello everyone, welcome back to the History of Jackson podcast and welcome to the first episode of our Chalke History Festival special series ready for 2026. And today we are joined by Talks Festival Programme Director, Charlotte Casella. How you doing, Charlotte?
How are you, Jackson? All good here.
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm really excited to have this discussion about what's going to be happening at Chalke because it's going to be an awesome year.
Yes, no, I think this year, I'm super excited about this year. I think it's going to be even better than all the other previous years. Yeah, there's lots of new stuff going on, which I will tell you all about.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying working with you through some of it. But then, before we start discussing what's in the programme,
yes,
some people might not know what Chalke is. So what is Chalke History Festival?
So Chalke is the UK's largest history festival, possibly maybe the largest in the world, if I can be so bold as to say that. And it is a fantastic mixture of talks given by historians, speaking about their books. We have discussions, we have conversations, we have panel events. We have, so in that side of things, it's quite sort of similar to literary festivals, but obviously much more entirely focused on history and current affairs, because we think it's really important to describe or use history to kind of make sense of these crazy times that we're living in, and whether we can learn the lessons of history or where history is pointing that we might go to in the coming years or months or whatever it is, probably months at the moment because everything changes so quickly. And then aside from all the talks and debates and things, we have also an amazing programme of living historians who are really absolute experts in their field. They'd really rather we call them experimental archaeologists, because they are really living the life of people in the past. So we have, for example, our amazing Iron Age team who last year were smelting iron with a view to making a sword. And by the end of the week, I think they probably produced a small letter opener rather than a sword, perhaps a dagger. But it was it really brought home how difficult it was to make things in the past. So they're on site all week and demonstrating and showing people how life really was in the olden days in various periods. We also have live music. We're doing a lot of folk music this year, although we also will have DJ sets and Supersonic Queen on Saturday night, which will be fun. We've got a barn dance one evening, and we have all sorts of performances. We've got Henry V being performed by a Shakespeare company, and we've got somebody performing a play called The Last Bantam. And so there's really an amazing mixture of all sorts of fun things. And also we just have a lovely, great bar, which is people have a lot of fun just hanging out there and eating delicious food from our food stalls, and having a little rosé or two or a pint of beer with the beautiful scenery of the Chalke Valley behind them. So it's really quite special, quite unique, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that just summarises why, myself and so many of the people arrange our whole entire summer around being at Chalke, because it's just the best place to be when you love history and you love being around people who love history as well. But then you were talking about the talks program and trying to contextualize the modern world. You
Yes.
said that it's changing month upon month, probably at some points day upon day. What kind of talks are going to be at Chalke that help us understand the situation we're in? Because we've got Ukraine, we've got situations in the Middle East, we've got someone in the White House who changes his mind every 5 seconds. How are we working on that at Chalke?
So, we've really got some top names. So we will have Anthony Scaramucci is coming. He'll give us a sort of very singular view into the life in the White House. And so it'll be super interesting to hear his opinions. We've got Neil Ferguson, who is obviously an amazing commentator on what's going on in the world. We've got Peter Frankopan, who's coming to talk about the 10th anniversary of the Silk Roads. When he first wrote his book, we were living in a very different world. So it's going to be super interesting to find out his views on what's changed with China over time, how the world is looking. I mean, obviously, in those 10 years, our views on globalization has completely changed. How's that impacted the world and the way we do business, the way that trade happens, the way that politics happens, all of those sort of things. We are going to have a bunch of generals discussing Trump and his effect on NATO. They'll be coming fresh from a NATO conference, so they'll really have the absolute latest cutting edge news on that front. They'll also be talking about war in the Pacific. See, Taiwan is becoming much more of a concern, and all the stuff that is happening on that side of the world. We haven't really spent much time talking about it in the past, but this year we're going to put a much bigger focus on that area, together with a whole morning based on the war in the Far East, to commemorate the end of the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. So we'll be discussing that. We are not doing very much on British politics this year, because I think everybody's heard enough. So we hope that Chalk will be a good escape from all of that kind of thing. And so, that's where we get the mixture of sort of really top commentators, and bringing in their sort of historical knowledge as well, or organising. One thing that we're trying to do this year is organise many more talks where we have a historian, for example, with a modern day practitioner. So, for example, we'll have a panel on women and justice. We've got Blessing Adams coming to give the historical perspective, and then we've got Wendy Joseph, who is a KC, and Edwina Grosvenor, who is a prison philanthropist and is doing incredible work to do on prison reform. So it'll be great to see how things were in the past and how things have changed over time. That's just a sort of illustration of how we're going to sort of address these issues.
And I really like how it's done. I've always enjoyed it at Chalk of how it's done holistically, and you get to see the parallels, and particularly those long threads of history, because history doesn't just end at the 2000s; it goes before that. The medieval and an ancient program is looking incredible. I'm really excited to come and see some of these historians. Who's going to contextualize the medieval world for us and show us that cutting edge research.
Dan Jones was hugely popular, and Helen Carr. I think those are our big names. The big names, stretching back, we've got Tom Holland on Suetonius. We'll have a really interesting panel with Toby Wilkinson on the Ptolemies, the last of the Egyptians. And we'll have, then Dan Jones and Helen. We've got a really strong piece on sort of England in the times of the Civil War, quite a lot on James I and that kind of period as well. And then, so we've got some really good names. Also on the living history front, we'll have lots of actual demonstrations on how people did things in the medieval times as well.
I love watching those demonstrations. I think I watched the Cooper last year make his barrel for about 5-10 minutes, just standing there in front of the tents. But then we've spoken about this a lot since last Chalk, actually, the importance of having children involved, yes. School kids involved in learning history. How does Chalk reach out to the next generation of historians and history lovers?
Well, we have a 2-day schools festival where we normally get sort of between 2,000 and 3,000 children. One is sort of years 6 to 9, and then we have the older ones on the second day. We have talks, especially for the older students. We have some amazing historians who are actually speaking at the adult festival as well. So we try and give students access to historians that they wouldn't normally have access to. So that's an incredibly important part of what we do. Almost the whole reason why we do what we do, because the funds that we raise go to support the schools programme. And we also, at the weekend, we have loads of fun stuff for kids to do. We've got a children's activity tent, we've got fairgrounds, we'll have a really strong programme of authors coming to give talks for kids. So that'll be really fun. There'll be different experiences they can do, from the trench to Wild West things. And so there's really stuff to keep kids entertained all day long. Mine, I think, would be very happy if they could come every day for the whole week, and I think they still would have stuff left to do by the end of it. Within the we're organising the living history sort of much more thematically this year, so people can go to an area, and it'll be much more sort of interactive. So within each area, there'll be much more for children to do as well than normal, more than in previous years. But for those kids who can't come to the festival, we also have an online hub which we're developing, and which will hopefully be online in September, from September onwards. And there, children will be able to see videos with little interviews with the historians who've been to the festival, and or videos of the living historians doing things. So that's going to be an amazing resource. So we're also very excited about that coming live.
I always love seeing the kids go in and out of the tent because just the way they are when they come out is they're absolutely beaming
Yeah,
that someone's taken the time to spend, talk to them about the history that they love.
yeah.
Is there a particular favourite moment you have when the kids are at the festival?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's just seeing them really have a good time and sort of rolling down the hill, for example, and not necessarily engaging, but just really enjoying the site and all that it has and running around. And then one minute they're eating ice creams and then they're on the helter skelter or whatever. And then they're listening to some demonstration or the little smiles on their faces when they see we have amazing performers and watching them sort of smile and enjoy it and really getting into history and sort of learning about stuff that you wouldn't necessarily hear about at school, and it's brought to them in a really entertaining way, and they can sit there for performance after performance and just lapping it all up. I think that's very special.
I mean, those performances are just brilliant. And to be honest, you could have exchanged children, students for the historians as well, because I think they're all the same when they
Yes,
when they come out their talks. And I think that's the nice thing about Chalk as well, is everyone gets involved and everyone goes to everyone else's events as
yes,
well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's and we're changing the layout of the site as well this year, to try and get people moving around a little bit more. And we've got, I mean, we're going to have some amazing statues by an artist called huge bronze sort of figures by an artist called Lawrence Edwards, which are going to be really striking. We've got a standing stone which we're putting up, and we're building around that. We're going to build a special area which is going to focus on the sort of Neolithic times and Stone Age and that kind of period. And we'll also have a tent in that area where we focus much more on, let's say, sort of the practical application of history. So we'll have sort of history researchers and museum experts and people who are doing history hands-on, for example, are living historians or um, artists who are using history to sort of influence their work. So that I think all of that will really help people move around the site a lot more and explore little different corners.
It's there's always something hidden when you go down the little aisles and try and find new things to study. But when you were mentioning the Neolithic period
Yes.
and the different areas of history, how does Chalk also engage with its very historic environment? Because the Chalk Valley is one of the most historic areas in Britain.
Yes. So, I mean, I guess we do that through sort of various talks. I mean, we do quite a few natural history type talks and get in local experts who can talk about the area. I'm hoping we might have a talk on commoning in the New Forest, for example. I mean, we're not in the New Forest, but it is fairly local. And we have a day, Wednesday is our day when we try and put more of a focus on the local area, either local celebrities or local sort of things. We've got a talk, for example, on Wessex Hill Giants. So that'll be, I mean, that's a discussion rather than a talk. So that'll be really interesting. So we do quite a lot to celebrate the local area and all that it offers.
I like that it gives back to that local area as well, because I think that's a really important thing about history is also giving back.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few young historians, or new generation, new historians coming through on this program as well.
Yes, there are. So we're doing, that's another thing that we're really putting an emphasis on this year is our Chalk Introducers program, which is basically historians 35 and under, who some are pretty well known, some less so, but they're all doing amazing work, either as historians, some young professors in universities, some are doing amazing work on social media, some are tour guides. All of them bring something to the festival that I think our older historians don't offer, which is communicating history to younger generations and using things like social media to do that. I mean, traditionally they wouldn't be considered historians, but we feel there's absolutely should be considered historians because a historian is somebody who communicates about the past very effectively, which is absolutely what they're doing. And I think it's important for us as well because we obviously have our schools day, and then this is the next step is helping people who might not get a platform elsewhere at festivals and giving them an opportunity to take part in a festival, to speak at a festival, get their message across, and sort of hopefully bring in new and younger audiences, but also communicate to the older audiences who might not be on TikTok or might not be on Instagram or whatever, and let them know about the fantastic work they're doing.
And it's been really fun to see see that kind of flesh out, because like you said, the term historian's kind of in flux now. You just used, you know, you have that stereotype, a bit like dusty people working in their desks, and it's very different.
Yeah. And I think it is incredibly different, but I mean, if history isn't to become history, we need to look at these other sort of ways of communicating what went on in the past. And I think what's exciting now is there are so many great things that people are doing, and it's that kind of thing which we very much hope will sort of bring more young people into sort of history, either as A-level students or learning it at university, doing history degrees at university, or just learning about history on Instagram and TikTok and making it fun, because so many people have an idea of history as being sort of staid and boring and kind of irrelevant, but it really isn't. I mean, our everyday lives are touched by history so much, and if you become more aware of what's going on around you, you can appreciate your life so much more, I think.
I totally agree. I totally agree, because there's so many people who've said to me, as particularly when I've been at Chalk, saying, "Oh, I didn't like history at school, but I really enjoy coming here because I get to talk about it and learn about it in a different way."
Yes, exactly. And I think that's the thing. It's not just history isn't just about learning about it at school, and it's not just about the kings and queens. And this is why we have also got putting much more of a focus on the practical application of history. Like, how is history relevant apart from learning the lessons of the past, which might actually do we actually ever learn the lessons of the past? I don't know. They're there, but I don't know if we learn them. But the other way that we use history is practically. So, I mean, conserving our buildings, doing things, amazing things with our archives. We've got a team who've been looking at the letters of Mary Queen of Scots and decoding them, archaeologists who are telling us about really interesting stuff and completely sort of revolutionizing our history, actually, and bringing new theories and new discoveries. And they're doing history on a day-to-day basis. So there's so many different ways in which you can get involved in history, and we want to celebrate all of those different ways and let people get involved in the way that is best for them.
Yeah, and certainly as a historian, seeing the other way that different historians do the work makes, you know, not only myself think about my work in a different way, it makes everyone else consider the way that they're approaching their own research, or, you know, introduce people to new topics. But
Yeah.
then, you know, talking about those evening events, and I think that's also an important part of Chalk, is
Yes. Yeah.
those dances, the music, the beer tent. You know, what is that like for someone who's not been there?
It's just really fun. So it's just really fun. I mean, I think it's a proper festival. I mean, and it's a festival which is actually truly open to everyone, because there's music if you want it, there's talks if you want it. We've got sort of the more light-hearted and fun things in the evening. This year we also have an after dark area where there'll be storytelling and acoustic music and really fun things. So little corners where people can just go and sit and enjoy something that they wouldn't necessarily have heard about before. And yes, it's open for everyone. You don't have to be a music lover, you don't have to be a historian, you can just come and hang out and have a good time.
And that for everyone as well. I think it's so nice because you can be sat there with someone who was in your talk earlier that day.
Yeah.
I remember last year having a pint with someone who was watching my talk, and then sitting with other historians whose talks I watched. But then the pricing and the ticket has changed this
Yes.
year. Could you just
So
let us know about that?
yes, so this year we are going down the route of the music festival, where you pay your entrance fee, and once you're in, you can go to anything, pretty much. I mean, there will be a few experiences that you have to pay for, but otherwise, you come in and you can dip into any talk. So if you want to, if you think I'll give that a try, it doesn't sound like the sort of thing I'd normally be interested in, but I don't have to pay for it, so I'm going to go and see what happens. That's fine. If you want to walk out after 10 minutes, you haven't wasted £12 or £10 or whatever it is doing that. You can just go and experiment and hopefully be surprised by actually the fact that it's an amazing talk with somebody super interesting. And then you suddenly discover a whole area of history that you maybe didn't really know that much about before. And we also felt, I mean, it is a sort of totally different concept, which people might find tricky to deal with at first. But it means, for example, that let's say Michael Palin, who's coming, it means everyone can go and see Michael Palin. You don't have to have spent some money on the entrance and then spend some more on Michael Palin. You can just rock up and hopefully get a space in the tent. But if not, we'll have screens outside. So then you can sit and watch it outside. If you want, and you have your kids, you can sit outside and watch him. and the kids can run around and throw ice cream around the place as they do and shout and fight, and you're not worried about disturbing a whole tent full of serious people. So we're hoping, well, our aim is really to make the festival much more democratic and much more accessible, even though it might seem a bit more expensive. It's still an awful lot cheaper than Peppa Pig World, and the return is 1,000 times greater.
Yeah, I could agree that it's an awful lot better than Peppa Pig World. But then that accessibility part of the ticketing and the festival that you mentioned, I think is really, really important,
Yes.
because more people can access it, and more people can actually access the topics that we're talking about. But then when it comes to the students, people who might not be able to, afford that full ticket price whilst they're studying, is there anything in place for them?
There is. So we're doing really good student prices, and under 16s are free. So it'll be really, definitely an awful lot cheaper than most music festivals. And again, much better value, because not only do you get music, but you also get amazing history as well.
And you still have the ability to hear after the end of the week as well.
Exactly. And you probably haven't had your tent destroyed, and because there is also camping. So if you want to stay the whole week and listen to all of it, you can, because we've got the most beautiful campsites with incredible views, um and all the facilities you might need if you want to camp, including glamping as well. So yeah, no, it's definitely, it might seem a bit more expensive to some, but once you're in, it's going to be so much better.
I think, yeah, it does highlight that Chalk offers so much to so many people and
Yeah.
gives back to so many people that we have to support those missions.
Yes, absolutely. And we're really lucky, because actually this year we have got a new partner, who's Evelyn Partners, who are incredibly generous with their support. So at a time when financing for festivals is difficult, I think this is a big sign of confidence in the festival, and how great it is that a big financial firm is willing to put their faith in us and finds that a good proposition. So that also helps enormously. But yeah, no, we're all in this for the long term. And hope our audiences are with us on that too.
Well, I certainly am. I rearrange, as I said, I rearrange my whole summer around being
Yeah.
able to come to Chalk, because it is just such a cool place to be,
Yes.
really.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a very, very special thing, and definitely not something that should be missed.
Well, I've got a final fun question for you, Charlotte. That's to do
Yes.
for all guests on the podcast. You know, I as we've said, the festival program for talks is ram packed. The performances and living historians are going to be incredible. There's the music, the food, which I absolutely love. But what are you most looking forward to this year?
I'm looking forward to seeing how this new site works, and I'm looking forward to seeing people move around the site much more than they used to in the past, when we had that previous plan. And I'm looking forward to the fact that the ticketing system now allows people to be much more experimental and try things out and discover stuff that they might not have felt was accessible before. So that's what I'm excited about. And I'm very excited about the young historians, because I think that our Chalk Introducers programme is going to be really interesting, and we've got some fantastic people there. And I'm also looking forward to finding out if Anne of Cleves was a Minger, which you can find out more about that when you look at our programme online.
I think
It's a very essential historical question.
I think that's a really, really nice answer. And I'm also really excited for that Chalk Introducers program as well,
Yeah.
because there are so many talented historians on there that deserve that limelight. So I think it's a really, really nice thing that everyone's going to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's going to be really fun.
And then if people want to grab tickets, find out more about Chalk, where can they go?
So they can go to our website, which is www.chalkfestival.com, and tickets, I think, are on sale from the 14th of April. Hopefully our programme finding gets confirmed, which we're all working flat out to do right now.
Yeah, no, I've seen everyone active on the spreadsheet, so it's
Yeah, all
I
the
know it's been crunch
anonymous
time.
beavers and raccoons and tigers and things in our Google spreadsheet.
It's good fun. It's good fun. I love seeing it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Charlotte, and
Oh,
I'm
thank you so
looking
much,
forward to.
Jackson. Yeah, and I'm
That's all-
really, really looking forward to it as well. I'm super excited to be working with you.
There we go. The Chalke History Festival special series on history with Jackson.